First of all, a warm welcome to all the panelists here. We'll do a quick round of introduction, maybe starting with Yashwant.
Hi, good morning. I am Yashwant from LOOTEL. We are the complete self-sustainable public toilet service provider. Right now we are running 4 public outlets, completely self-sustainable.
Excellent. And then Anand.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Happy World Toilet Day today. I represent USAID India, and I'm the Senior Water and Sanitation Advisor working in the mission in Delhi. We are part of a global team, which is the USAID team across 180 countries. Very glad to be part of this event today and to partner with the Toilet Board Coalition. Thank you once again for inviting us.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Divyang, and I represent the Tata Trust here. And Trust has a very flashy program called Tata Water Mission, which looks at the water, sanitation, and hygiene value chain, works in around 12 states in the country, and trying to look at how we bring the technology innovation into regional context or a local context and provide a better solutions to the communities. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Naman and I represent the Government Innovation Ecosystem of India. I represent the National Technology Commercialization Program called AGNII, which was launched last year to match the innovator providers with technology seekers. Very happy to be here.
Hi, good morning. My name is Geetika. I work with UNILEVER. I actually head the home and hygiene business for South Asia. And I was there in the TBC session in 2016, and it's lovely to see it come all this way. So thanks for having me over.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Aseem Kumar. I represent United Nations Global Compact Network India. I head the Asia Pacific Resource Center based out of New Delhi, and really glad to be here and understanding this wonderful world of sanitation economy. Great to be here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Priyanka. I represent LIXIL. As Erin mentioned, we are one of the world's largest player in water and housing technology, and our aim is to transform the lives of 100 million people by 2025 through our innovative sanitation solutions. I take care of public affairs for Asia Pacific, not just for Sato, but for a lot of our other product brands who are now moving towards sustainable water consumption and sanitation. And I'm proud to be associated with the Toilet Board India chapter as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Ajeet and I represent TBF Environmental Solutions, which is a newly formed company to commercialize the waste treatment technology that we have developed. Many of you may have heard of Tiger toilets, so that's what we are, and we also do larger scale systems using the same Tiger earthworm technology. I was associated with TBC as a cohort member a couple of years back, and very happy to be here. Thank you. Yeah, last year.
Hi, my name is Ulka Sadalkar. I am representing Saraplas Private Limited. We are in the business of portable sanitation, and I was also part of one of the cohort members, and I represent the T model here, the toilet for her.
So, I think essentially we do want to talk about the sanitation economy in India. It's a huge opportunity. It's an interesting opportunity. And let me just give you some quick facts about the India opportunity. In the urban India, we have about 400 million people living in urban India, out of which about 80 million people live in informal settlements or slums. And that's a very nice sort of, I want to use the word biteable, opportunity that SMEs can address in partnership with large businesses. 80 million people, and 60% of that is concentrated across 6 cities in India. So that's one pocket of opportunity that's available for urban sanitation solutions. sanitation centers. Madhu talked about the Suvidha approach, the Suvidha center approach. And we can easily imagine if 80 million people, even a 10-15% of that get access to the Suvidha kind of model, sanitation center model, then the kind of revenues, the kind of business value that it can generate. Equally on the other side, in rural India, about 800 million people live in rural India. And in rural India, we are seeing the emergence of these villages, which actually have started resembling towns. And the sort of term that the government uses for those are the census towns. These are villages with 5,000 population each, showing a lot of industrial development, showing income which is non-agriculture in nature, showing population growth, showing income growth, etc. Ideal targets for rural solutions on the sanitation side. And I think Yashwant, Ulka, Ajeet, they're targeting these, census towns, the tiger toilet, rural household toilet. I think it's a great opportunity for the census town market segment, and Ulka and Yashwant, both on the urban side, catering to that 80 million and just 50 million of it in just 6 cities, that kind of market segment. So essentially, what we want to do today is find out how these opportunities can be addressed best. And so we have big business here, Priyanka from LIXIL, Divyang from TATA Trust, and Geetika from UNILEVER, who are also, by the way, on the steering committee and the board of the India chapter, which will be announced tomorrow. And we have Anand from USAID, who will be part of the India steering committee as well, enabling the whole business voice in sanitation in India, and joined by entrepreneurs Ulka, Ajeet, and Yashwant, whom they've worked together much of last year and this year in trying and figuring out what the challenges are to scale and how those challenges can be then resolved. So let me start with Priyanka. And Priyanka, could you comment on what are the priorities that LIXIL sees in the sanitation economy in India, and your experience working with Tiger Toilets last year and this year with Yashwant on various kinds of support that you're providing?
Okay, so for LIXIL, it's very simple really. Our purpose is making better homes a reality for everyone, everywhere. And suddenly comes into the ambit about over 4 billion people who don't have access to basic sanitation. So we felt, since we are one of the world's largest players in water technology, it's but obvious that we want to do a bit to address the global sanitation challenge. And we have Sato, which is an innovative toilet solution with the V-Trap technology that works very well for income groups and people who don't have access to basic water and sewerage infrastructure. But we have one product, and while we're developing more products like pit liners, toilet superstructures, converting marine plastic waste into structures for the toilets, we realized that we alone cannot do this. It's too huge a challenge, and it's not just a sanitation challenge, it's a challenge of human dignity and basic human rights. And which is why we come to Toilet Boat Coalition, and we partner with organizations like Tiger Toilets and LOOTEL, which we believe have really good technologies, very good expertise. They have speed, they have passion. And where LIXIL can work with them is help them provide scale, help them provide technical expertise, open up some markets for them, and also help these organizations grow in an asset-light model, which is for marketing, branding, technology support, some design principles. We are not asking them to invest upfront in their growth journey. So really for LIXIL, the purpose is two-faced. One is our own toilet solution, but more importantly, addressing the challenge in a global value chain base, and hence the partnerships that we have.
Yeah, thank you, Priyanka. Next, maybe moving to Geetika. So Unilever, T-Bus was part of the Unilever Transform project last year, and we saw the amazing work around building the consumer value proposition that transformed, which is already a very innovative bus into a really compelling value proposition for women. So could you comment on that partnership and also on your experience leading the Domestos brand and how you think brands for low-income communities can be created?
So, as Madhu yesterday was talking about it, the purpose of Unilever is to make sustainable living commonplace. And it started all the way back with Lord Lever, and we're just following in his footsteps. I think way back in 2015, Unilever was one of those founding members of TBC saying we must do something together to really tap into this economy. And over the years, we have had many mentees, one of which, Ulka, I hope you agree, is benefiting from our partnership. And I think, like Saraplast already had a great business model. It was really about how could we bring our understanding of consumers into their ecosystem. And to that end, therefore, it was about, of course, they've built the toilets in a very innovative way. How can we ensure that, you actually get usage, and a lot of, somewhere also it breaks even and becomes a viable business model. And therefore, to that end, we said, advertising on the buses, having these little, cafe and a snack counter, selling of sanitary napkins. So really, other things that we could do, a little bit of a very nominal but a toilet usage fee, things which could therefore make it a viable ecosystem, which can then really be scaled up. And that's really the ask, because you could do something for free only in a very limited scale, and the moment it starts making business sense, it really then can be scaled up. So I think that's really the space we are in. And just to the second point of what you said of how Domestos answers to the low-income consumers. So in India, we have, the brand is called Domex, and we have launched this toilet cleaning powder. Yeah, so I'm sure if some of you who are Indians would be aware, the market is all liquid cleaners, and to that end we have this product which is 2 Indian rupees, which is like $0.03, yeah, for a single time usage, less than half of what a liquid cleaner would be. So very affordable and accessible. It is perfect to work with all of the bio toilets and the pit latrines, because it doesn't inhibit the biological activity. We use low foam, so it's really less water usage that we have. So it's in that sense really been built to say how we can do something for usage of toilets. Yeah, because of course with the Modi government and the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, the building of toilets is being taken care of. It's behavior change that we need to do to make them ensure that they are clean, maintained, and really used. And to that end, I think Unilever therefore wanted to do something which is in the space of affordable hygiene, which is really something that has helped answer it in the spaces we've launched it. So, yeah.
Thanks, Geetika. And this is, very, this is what we are also seeing in the sanitation center models in the urban space, that while there is the direct revenue possibility in sanitation services, but imagine people, reaching the sanitation center every morning, and so there are many more opportunities to do revenue bundling, to give them more and more more other products and services. And maybe just to skip to Yashwant now. Yashwant, you run a cafe plus restroom business, so that's really on the front of when people come and use the restroom, you get an opportunity to build a commerce model around that. So could you talk about that?
First of all, I'm talking about the cafe and toilet at the same time. How it can be possible? When we are running with the cafe and toilet, that's we are in did a smart job in that. If you are standing in front of the cafe, you will never see the toilet. And if you are standing in front of the toilet, you will never see the cafe. So we are taking care of that. And running cafe with toilet, it's not like that. We are running toilet with cafe. There is something different with that. The toilet is the main job for us. We are making sustainable toilet through cafe. The main job is the sustainable toilet instead of the cafe's business. Obviously, cafe is giving the sustainability to the toilet in management as well as the financial sustainability also and the quality also. So for us, cafe is the secondary part, but main time is the cafe is giving the sustainability to the toilet, so we can say that the toilet with cafe. The most thing is that revenue part and that running cafe with the toilet. First of all, we need to change the mental behavior. How can cafe with toilet? It's now you can't believe it. You can have a burger in toilet. That kind of the cooling quality in giving me in the toilet. We are running 4 outlets from last 4 years. We have served almost 3 lakh people from last 3 years. So it's the state of art, the quality in toilet. So it's a completely self-sustainable.
Thanks, Yashwant. And we see that in the economics as well. In the transformation from a toilet service to a toilet plus cafe consumer value proposition. We can see that a huge improvement in economics. We can measure the average revenue per user kind of metrics and understand how those economics are really improving, making the operation sustainable. And I think in the case of LOOTEL also the capital expenditure has also become recoverable. Maybe Ulka, we've seen this as a part of the Transform project last year, is the transformation from what was, by the way, very innovative to convert scrap buses into toilet for women. And then the sort of other transformation into creating a value proposition around women. I think there were some couple of value propositions that you sort of analyzed and tested, and then you shortlisted one and then moved forward with that. Can you take us through that journey?
So thanks to Transform, we started with a market survey and research, and we started with lot more ideas than just cafe. We tried out health, we tried out a laundromat, we tried out a shopping kiosk, and we tried out a cafe. Out of all these, the cafe is something that worked out right in the beginning. It was a no-brainer. And we realized that we should move on and have a partnership as far as cafe is concerned. With the laundromat, what happened was we were getting consumers, but it was mostly single men and was not serving our purpose, so we had to stop it. And this year we are exploring more on the health front. We know what we want to do. We've already tied up with a partner. So what we did was we experimented with a whole lot of ideas, and we did a bit of health, but we did really basic stuff in health, like just provide leaflets, and we have a video running in the bus for just a simple home breast cancer examination or information on UTI. Because we are not licensed health providers, we did not want to step into it too deeply. So we tried a lot of things, and now we know what we want to go ahead with. We're sure of what we want to do this year.
Yeah, and can you also comment about the economics, how they've improved, how the footfall has improved?
So initially, people did not recognize it as a toilet because it looked like a bus from outside. And thanks to Transform and their marketing team, we did a whole lot on communication and started talking to them in local language, made it look more like a toilet, made it like really bright pink and visible. So the footfall did increase. It still is increasing. Now we have a lot more repeat consumers than just one-time consumers. We had about 20 to 25 women visiting the bus earlier. Now we have on an average in the weekday about 60 to 70, and on weekends it goes up to 100, 150, sometimes even 300 women visiting the toilets. And thanks to this, the attendants inside the bus are really proud of what they're doing right now. Earlier, they would work, they did not tell their family, or they worked really far away from their home. Because they did not want to know, they did not want their friends to know that they were cleaning a toilet. But now they're so proud of what they're doing because it's brought a lot of dignity to their job. Consumers, they don't use their hands, they're using proper equipment to clean the toilets, they have proper uniform, we train them, and they're finding that even consumers' behavior towards them is very different, and so many of them just say thank you to them for providing a clean toilet to them. So even their income level has gone up. So I'm glad to inform that we are breaking even now. We're not yet profitable, but we're definitely breaking even now.
And you're also experimenting with some sensors in the toilet.
Yes, so this is all to enable, to help her because we don't want to increase the number of people working in the bus. So there's a footfall counter which helps her keep a count of the number of people coming and also monitor what sales she's making. We have termites inside the bus which monitor the humidity and the temperature, which will help us, the data from which in about 6 months will help us, change the interiors a bit, work on ventilation, work on smell, odor. Right now, anybody who comes in is so surprised that it's a smell-free toilet, that there's no stink in there. We have other monitors which monitor, like for sensitivity, because we are also trying advertising with these buses. So what is the footfall in and around the bus? So all this data collection is helping us maximize our revenues through this, and in turn help this woman attendant, or the sanipreneur as we call her, increase her capability to earn, maximize her revenues.
Yeah, thank you, Ulka. Maybe Divyang, if I could come to you next. Two important themes from what Ulka mentioned. One is the whole data-driven approach, and how data-driven approach can sort of make decision-making efficient for business model. And the other, also something which I know is very important for you, is the whole sanitation worker welfare. How do we look after that? So could you comment on these two priorities and any others that you might have?
Sure, thanks. So I think today is a very interesting day, and before I actually come to a comment, I think since many years I think we have been celebrating the World Toilet Day, but today I think this is a special day, and I think we need to also have energy in the room, because in India, I think in October 2019, the government have actually declared that India have achieved the ODF, which means like 600 million people have actually got an access to toilet, which is, if you see the global level, it's like 50% of the population which were defecating now have got access. So I would like to request all of you to applaud those sanitation warriors and champions, starting from the Prime Minister to the development partners to the entrepreneurs and the business leaders who have actually made it happen. And that actually brings a more positive, energy among all of us to look at now half the battle won, now half to go, which is more in terms of looking at the business as a perspective. And before coming to a comment, I just would like to give you one small data point. So there are 4,300 plus ULBs in India which have achieved ODF status. I mean, there are still some challenges. There are 6 lakh villages which have become ODF. But importantly, the 4,000 census towns which you spoke about, around 500 million people are residing in this 4,000 census towns. So you can look at the whole urbanization space which is actually growing in India, is actually indicating that the larger villages are becoming kind of a smaller towns. Unfortunately, because they are actually coming into a definition of a rural, they are not in a position to get access to the infrastructure investment which the urban sector gets. So I see a business opportunity for this kind of a growing sector, and by 2030, 50% of Indian population will be in urban or peri-urban area. So I see a lot of potential in terms of the opportunity for a business to solve the other side of the story on sanitation. Now coming to the point what you mentioned about the data, and I think these are some of the data which helps people to take a decision, a right kind of a decision, both at the policy level, to define the right kind of a regulation, to create a conducive environment for all to sustain and play their role, be it a social entrepreneur, be it a private sector business houses, or also an aggregator. I think it's important that this data needs to be captured effectively, and I think put it into the public domain so that the decision support system would be more inclusive in nature. I think the trust have been part of the, we have one portfolio called data-driven governance, and we help and work with the government in two elements, which I would like to focus here. One is about actually rating the cities based on their infrastructure facilities with the basic services. So what are their performance level on indicators on the water, what are the performance indicators on the sanitation, what are the performance indicators on the transportation, and based on that, these cities are ranked in specific category. Now I think this, once you rank these cities, there is a one kind of a, whether you would like to invest, the businesses would like to invest into those cities or not. That's become a very easy for them to select. And at the same time, the city also understand about the priorities of their work. I think these are the two, the power of data is very, very important. Unfortunately, I think we have not reached to that threshold limit where we can use it very, very efficiently. So I think the power of data is very critical in nature in terms of if you want to really achieve the SDGs 6.2 in terms of the sustained ODF by, not by 2030, I would say, we should, I think, aim it by 2024 or 2025. So that's the one point. Second point, which I think you asked about the requirement of, I think, the entrepreneurs.
Sanitation workers.
Pardon?
Sanitation workers.
Yeah, sanitation workers. So as we talk, let's say, for example, in last 5 years, 100 million toilets have been built. I think someone has to clean these toilets, okay? Someone has to manage the fecal waste. Someone has to also manage the solid waste. So who will be part of this game? Because I think if I'm not wrong, there are very limited universities who actually have a courses in terms of looking at the sanitation management as a last mile people who are involved into it. So, and there is also a big stigma in terms of sanitation is a specific role of some specific communities. So the trust have actually started a program called Mission Garima. It's actually providing a dignity to the sanitation workers, not only by only providing them the technology, innovative technologies to clean the sewers or manage the waste effectively, but also at the same time providing them some kind of a skills. So what we feel, I think we need to create a very strong social capital in this space. And I think the people who have been engaged with that, that's I think one, I think we have to bring them one ladder up by building their capacity. But I think second, I think we need to create this sector so sexy that I think the more and more youth, which I think India is one of the youngest country in the world right now, I think more and more youth look at it as an opportunity not for only the job but also as an enterprising perspective. And I think for that we need to create a very strong ecosystem by bringing not only the policy makers, not only the big businesses, but also bring the academias, evidence-based solutions how we can create. And create some kind of a ecosystem where I think the people should start learning about sanitation as a good business opportunity for them, start from maybe the high school or higher secondary schools, so that they can actually think as in one of the avenues apart from the robotics or AI. So I think that balancing between these two extremes need to be created by bringing a right kind of a people or right kind of opportunities for the young generation in this space. Yeah. That's what I feel. Thank you.
Excellent. And I think that we are seeing the role of data and in business models as well. Although it still needs to be explored, what's the argument for investment in data, like what is the data monetization possibilities. But as examples from T-Bus and what you mentioned, I think data driven does definitely support more efficient decision making, and therefore, leads to already those gains on margins, gains on, revenue side, cost side. Before we come to joint ventures and, the corporate SME partnership, I just wanted to bring in Anand from USAID. Anand, could you give us a sort of a context of what the urban sanitation space is looking like in India? We've seen that Swachh Bharat mission really provided a tailwind for business models, for large businesses, for SMEs. What's the way forward now? I mean, what's the government planning to do next? Where is the government support on urban sanitation in the years to come?
Yeah, thanks, Venu, and pretty timely actually that you basically pointed this out. Having completed the 5 years of the Swachh Bharat mission, rural, which is the Grameen, and you'll hear more, I think, from Secretary Aramaya tomorrow. And our work with USAID India has also been with the urban side, which is the cities and the towns. And Divyang, thanks for pointing out those statistics. Those are exactly the kind of things that we are dwelling upon. The 4,000 plus cities and towns, and the 2001 census showed a dramatic rural and city dimension of 80% to 20%, and 2011 shows that as 70-30, which means, like, people are slowly moving in from the rural to the urban side. And we see in urban side places like what we call the vulnerable population sites, which are the slums, as exactly what is in context to what Venu pointed out. In villages, you're seeing these as small towns. In cities, we see slums as the smaller villages within the cities. So we have a very complex situation within cities and urban areas where villages and cities per se are staying together. Some people have and some people do not have the basic amenities. Having said so, and the 400 million plus urban population that we are looking at through our bilateral engagement with the Government of India, that is USAID and the Ministry of Housing and Urban, we basically entered into a partnership in 2015 to support the Swachh Bharat Mission Urban. Over the past 4-5 years, we have a team that is looking at the rollout of the mission, including the Amrut program and the smart cities. And we actually have been able to mobilize more than 3 million toilet construction and getting cities close to about 4,000 cities being certified as ODF. Now, that's something which close to October 2, 2019, the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, has been in a way sorted out or settled, or the announcement has been made to the government beyond the country's boundaries that India is now ODF free. Now, the element that basically has crept in is what's next. And that's exactly where we have been starting to get into dialogues with the government and the host various institutions about the elements of ODF plus, ODF plus plus, and ODF S. I know these are very confusing terminologies, but just to keep it simple, ODF plus and ODF plus plus are sustainable platforms to ensure whatever has been done to make that ODF is sustained. ODF S is simple, it's ODF sustainability plans. All cities and villages have now to do this plan, which is the ODF S plan, which is meant for the next 5 years. Having said that in the backdrop, Venu, the element of who does what comes up now. The government has its own, like agenda and, directives of what to do. The citizens are to be part of this roadmap in the next 4-5 years. The private sector, which has been there always, is something that from the donor side, from the development partner side, we are requesting and we are urging and we are ensuring that they have a place on that table along with the government. And that's one thing which I'm very proud that TBC has already started making it appear that we are there to support and help you achieve that common goal. It's not a goal of either or, it's a common goal. And I think I'm very proud that the summit marks that plunge, marks that commitment, and marks that handshake with the government in every host country, I'm sure, wherever the chapter basically shapes up in the future.
from USAID sides, we have seen some things where we have started as small supports from the private sector or from the donors to have seen that being scaled up and triggered off by the government itself. Examples being in 2016-15, we started this with the government of India, which is called the Swachh Sarvekshan, which is the survey of the cities. We started this in 16 with just 73 cities. Today in 2019, we have touched 4,037 cities that have actually been assessed by that same template that was started in 2016 with very small funding from the donors and private sectors contributed together. Another example is the e-tutorials. It's tutorials which basically helps the city managers of villages and cities across the country to know about the best practices, and it's like a management tool which is put up on the portal where every city manager or district manager across the country has access and can actually learn about the way to manage the sanitation issues in their city, towns and villages. That has crossed more than 2 million as we speak last week, with certifications that have been downloaded by those city managers from districts as well as towns. That tool was initially supported by Microsoft, and we had initial support also from the donors coming in. After about 2 years, that had automatically been scaled up by the Government of India's resources. The third example I would like to give is the partnership that we basically initiated with Google. Google helped basically do the toilet locator map and the app which is there in all the mobiles as we speak. That has also been scaled up with the Government of India's resources post what we have basically triggered off as the scalable models to show that this is the how part can be done. In short, Venu, I just would like to sum up is we have a role with the private sector as we speak to tell them the how part, but the greater scalability needs to be done by the government. It needs to be done by the host country. And that's an opportunity which I think TBC has as a mandate that can actually move forward to do so. We have a committed group, and it's great that this is growing. For the last 3-4 years, we've been associated also with the TBC. It's for the host countries to basically utilize this as a resource, as a partner in the movement as we move forward. I think that's an opportunity which I think from USAID, we stand committed to stand with TBC to support you in this road as we move forward.
Thanks, Anand. Then, and we have a workshop tomorrow where the ministry has asked us this very question, how can we enable business models? I think the workshop is at 11 a.m. Tomorrow, so do not miss that. Let me turn to rural now, and Ajeet. You've worked, you were part of the 2018 Accelerator program, and the biodigester zero waste toilet that you developed, and you work very closely with LIXIL on product development. Can you take us through that journey where you are? And I know that that's developing into some sort of strategic partnership. So can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, thanks. I'll talk both about the rural as well as the recent urban experiences that we've had. So as I said earlier, we are basically into the waste treatment business. So we all know that almost 70 or more than that, 70-75% of the waste goes untreated today, especially in urban areas, to the rivers and streams and groundwater. Even in the rural areas, if you look at the situation now, it's basically septic tanks and pits. So we are not actually offering any treatment. There is still the whole big problem of how you treat that septage coming out of the septic tanks and how you prevent this groundwater from getting contaminated with so many toilets being built under the Swachh Bharat, for example, recently. So we have been trying to address that last almost now it's coming to 6 years now, when we actually started with our first experiments near Pune, where we built the first 10 toilets. So we tried using earthworms and bacterial culture to decompose that. We found the results to be very, very encouraging, and then we commercialized this activity since 2016. So our basic market initially was the rural market, where we were trying to, we are also trying to sort of sell this to rural households. It's not an easy job to basically develop a technology from ground up, try it out. We took more than a year just to monitor the initial toilets and see whether the thing is working or not. So after that, trying to sell this technology, especially also in the whole Swachh Bharat subsidy-driven environment, where the costs were actually governed by the subsidy amount that was being given out. That turned out to be sort of it was an opportunity, but also at the same time, it was something that we had to match the cost, basically, which was a pretty tough job. So getting from there, trying to establish the technology on the ground, trying to get it approved through the systems. So all that for a startup takes time and takes a lot of resources. So luckily we have been supported by organizations like TBC and LIXIL on the way, through which we've sort of crossed that initial hurdles, and now we are really trying to commercialize that in a big way. We also tried to do some urban, again, household level ones. Shelter is here, and we've done some experiment with trying to develop similar toilets for slums. There is a great demand for personal household toilets for slums. Because we know about all the issues related to community toilets or public toilets. So people do want their own toilets, and it's a big challenge to design something for a very small space and which can decompose the waste on site. So we are also trying along that in last maybe 1.5 years. But over the time, we also have stepped into scaling this up. So going from a single household toilet to we've designed something for urban sewage treatment as well as fecal sludge plants. So we've got about 8 sewage treatment plants now. One of them has been running in Pune for last 2 years. It is treating waste from about 5,000-6,000 people, and the water is being recycled to irrigate gardens and saving fresh water for the municipality, of course. So and we also got solutions for apartments, for office buildings, and also so there is a whole lot of basket which is available now. And we're trying to figure out ways to do that because there is, the markets are different and have to be addressed in a different fashion for rural, for urban slums, for STPs, and also fecal sludge treatment plants that we have now. So with LIXIL, we have been talking last 1.5 years to try and develop a product jointly so that we can basically have a digester. So as a product for households, we have a small digester which has got earthworms inside it and the whole media which decomposes the waste. Right now it is more or less an assembled product, which is also sort of is a hindrance to scale up. But I think with LIXIL's help, we'll be able to convert that into a digester in the box kind of a model where we can really expand quickly, and also getting support from LIXIL to market and sell this in different areas using their existing infrastructure. So that's where we are at. For the larger scale systems, we are trying to bid for tenders and try to go and scale this up, which is, I think, coming together. It will take a while, but I think it will come together.
Great. All the best for that. And then on to Naman. Naman, you work with early stage technologies on one hand, and then corporates on the other, bringing them together, helping those technologies get commercialized under the umbrella of a corporate this thing. So what's been your experience? I mean, what are the formats of engagement? How can these partnerships be, sort of what can we do to enable those partnerships? How can they become more mainstream?
Sure. So when we talk about India, we usually say 50,000 startups. We say we have the third largest unicorn pool. Whereas we forget that we have equally huge needs to take care of, and wash and sanitation is one of those areas. So here I represent the government ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, that is trying to promote innovations from the academia, from the government research labs, the startups, as well as individual innovators to scale up their technologies. We all know about Startup India. We have Atal Innovation Mission, and there is AGNII. AGNII stands for Accelerating Growth of New India's Innovations. What we do is we have worked with large, big corporations as well as SMEs and realized that all of them are looking to cater to some issue, and they really don't have the solution to, amongst themselves always. So we connect them to the relevant researcher, scientist, academician, startup in the Indian ecosystem. Given the magnum of the innovation ecosystem we have, and given the size of India, we work as an umbrella body sponsored by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister. Now coming to the ways in which startups or innovators or solution providers can work with bigger corporates, there are many. The two main approaches that has been recognized by Harvard Business is a cohort-based approach as well as a funnel-based approach. In the cohort-based approach, startups are taken or engaged in form of a group wherein they have interactions among themselves, among the mentors that are available from the corporate side, and eventually after a 4 or 6 month engagement with the corporate, they present the solution, and if likable, the solution is adopted. The other approach is the funnel-based approach. In the funnel-based approach, the corporate has a bigger part. What they do is they engage with the startup, they see what the technology is, what the innovation is, probably give them a small paid pilot. Eventually, if the pilot is successful, they engage with further development of the product, there's adaptations to that product, and eventually there is some kind of funding. So inherently, neither of these approaches is better. However, in our experience, we have experienced this, that for companies where the internal line of managers is very strong, the funnel-based approach works really well. However, the companies that are trying to develop an engagement with the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, the cohort-based way is actually for the beginners. Coming to the terminologies that is used in the ecosystem, we have the accelerators, and we have many here, including the Toilet Board Coalition Accelerator. Then we have the open innovation programs, wherein the corporations tell the innovators that we have this problem and we are looking for solutions. Now, in which the problem is put out on various platforms. There are the private partners like Incubate Hub, other innovation consulting organizations, as well as the government platform Startup India, wherein a corporation like a Unilever can put in a problem of a powder-based disinfectant on an open platform and invite the country to find the solutions, irrespective whether it's from a startup, an academic institution, or a government research lab. Then we have something like the CVCs, which most of you are aware about, the corporate venture capital arms. What our experience has been that a lot of companies are not able to identify what to invest in, because they only want to invest in something which has an upward trajectory. And unfortunately, they do not have the resources to put aside and a group of managers to look after the CVCs. So we have suggested them to invest in an existing fund. So there are a lot of private venture capital funds there in the market, and they can actually have thematic investments. So if sanitation is the focus, then any kind of startups or innovators working in that space can be evaluated for funding. Hackathons, a very popular way of engagement out there in the West. 2 or 3 day engagement, workshop based, wherein the corporate develops the problem, the solution, the prototype, and the iterations to that in the hackathon model. Mentorship and distribution is another model which we highly recommend and have been suggesting every SME or corporate or multilateral organizations, even governments, that, hey, listen, work with the innovators, because very frankly, they don't have the solutions in the most mature form yet, but they have the capability to take it there. So they need your mentorship as well as your distribution capabilities, and it actually means a lot to them. And eventually, the last way is to become a customer. So a Unilever or a LIXIL or a Kimberly-Clark can become a customer of one of these innovators, try a product out with a very limited base of customers, and eventually get into a larger partnership. Unfortunately, it looks very straightforward and very sorted on the paper. However, there are a lot of practical problems with the engagement. And in many cases, they can be solved with a very strong commitment and some very dedicated line of internal managers within the corporates. We understand that at times startups or innovators will not have the most mature solution, and we really don't expect them to do so. What we really want is to expand the existing limited pathway that a particular organization is taking to engage with these innovators, to evaluate the technologies that are actually emerging external to their own R&D labs, because there is, whether the evaluation will happen by the R&D unit or by the business unit or by some other legal unit just to put the NDA or the non-disclosure agreement in place, it becomes too complicated, and there is lack of effective collaboration between teams and business units to make this happen. And the last and the most important is the definition of problem, or the definition of what we are looking for. We totally agree that most of the corporations want to keep ahead of the wave of disruption that's hitting their systems, or they want to manage their brand through engagement with innovators. And the third way now in India that has been developed is through their corporate social responsibility funds. However, it is very important to know what you're trying to solve for and to develop a very extensive understanding of how and what are of those questions. So my suggestion will be that we have a lot of government as well as private support stakeholders in the ecosystem such as AGNII, Startup India and many to help you engage with early stage startups, scaling stage startups, validation stage startups, and mature innovators, apart from the huge academic as well as the research ecosystem we have in the country. However, please be aware of what you will do with these innovators, because it's very important to know what the end state is. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Naman. That's good points there. Get startups and corporates together and clear goals and outcomes. And then, Aseem has been patiently listening to everyone. I wanted to come to Aseem in the end because you run the UN Global Compact India operations and the Asia Pacific Resource Center. How do we increase, and you work with multiple businesses, when we met yesterday, you mentioned about 3,000 of them in India alone, and working on different SDGs. How do we get business more actively involved, rolling up their sleeves, working with SMEs, like Naman mentioned, with clear, articulated goals and outcomes?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Venu. First of all, I am not a business leader. That's why he put me in the end. Secondly, I am merely a student of sustainability and amazed to find out about this wonderful world of sanitation economy. So compliments to the TBC, because what is important here is to mainstream this, and most of what I wanted to say has already been covered by Naman, but I will still try. So the UN Global Compact Network India is the local arm of the United Nations Global Compact, and we have 195 countries where the network is there. So in Australia, it will be the Australian Global Compact Network. In Brazil, it will be Brazil Global Compact Network. So a lot is happening in the stage of various countries drive for the achievement of SDGs. And as someone rightly pointed out in this panel, that by I think it was USAID, Rudra. So by installing so many toilets, we have already completed 50% of the target. So let me share with all of you that India is being considered as the laboratory of the world as far as the SDGs achievement is concerned. And if India is able to achieve the targets by 2030, 50% of the world's SDGs would have been achieved. So my favorite goal among all the SDGs is goal number 17, which is partnership for goals. And as some of the eminent panelists before me said that it is a team sport, so I also want to say that it is an agenda for everybody. Whether we are in this room, we are not in this room, we are outside, we are Indians, we are Europeans, we are from Africa. Partnership for goals is the only means that we can tackle these issues, including the bringing of sanitation economy into the mainstream. Because till the time that you consider yourself as, not for profit and, doing only a social cause, of course you are doing a social cause. Of course you are not for profit by your very, foundation. But the fact is that it is not a sustainable model. And I'm repeating myself here because as our friend from UNILEVER, Madhu, told us yesterday, it has to be a very, very solid business model, number one. Number two is that the brands have to be hammered in the public domain. Because unless we blow our trumpet regularly, we will not be able to come to the mainstream. Coming to the India story, so we have a large, presence of over 3 million NGOs. That is a very, very important resource that we have. Number two is that government, as already mentioned by my esteemed colleagues here, is absolutely mandating the achievement of SDGs, and in fact our goals are aligned, the national development goals are aligned with SDGs. Then another player in the field is the corporate, and this is where the interesting fact is that the CSR law which we have is the most unique and developmental enabling law. There are about 10,000 to 12,000 companies which qualify for the CSR role in now, because there are policy guidelines which are about to be made applicable and formalized, which very clearly state that CSR funds have to be expended, have to be utilized in driving the SDGs. So there's a huge fund waiting. So let's not go fund hunting. Let's go partner hunting. Let's make it into a movement. And the two most important players will be the corporates and the media. Media, unfortunately, is still not that aware about the social sector or the developmental sector. So they like to cover, put a few pictures and that's it. They have to play a more important role. And what we at UNGCNI can do for you is we are a network platform. We have over 550 members, largely corporates, then NGOs, and also a lot of academic sector, which is very prominent role to play in this. So we will support anything and everything to further the SDGs in any which way, and we really will be happy to engage with all of you and bring it to the mainstream and make sure that the scales that are required, because if you were to look at India, even 1 million is not scale as far as we are concerned. So therefore, what is needed is to make it not only mainstream, but make it a Jan Andolan, a public movement where government, NGOs, corporates, and also very important role can be played by the public sector organizations. Because I think ONGC alone has an annual CSR spend of close to 650 crores.
Yeah.
So And corporates are sometimes struggling as to where to put their money. So we are in the process of launching a portal which will be a social exchange platform, where on one side we will have the corporates, those who have resources and funds to offer, and on the other side there will be the implementing partners, the consulting partners, and we will play the role of, we will host all the information, we will vet the implementing agencies and the NGOs and the accelerators and the innovators and the entrepreneurs, including MSMEs, and that should be a very interesting thing where at one stop you find everything. So you will be able to access that and you will be able to come to the mainstream. But before I end, I just want to appeal to the sanitation economy and the champions of sustainability in the sanitation sector. Why do we still have tubs in these hotels, bathing tubs? Why do we still have showers in these hotels? What are we doing about it? Because you'll be surprised to know that when I asked for a bucket and a mug, they couldn't understand. It is alarming. Water is the scarce most resource, invaluable, and still all the sanitary manufacturers are making money by selling shower heads, by selling tubs and all. So please, let's do something. Let's also do a campaign, because I believe there are more than 5,000 plus 5-star Alliance hotels in the world, and this is on the shorter side. The actual numbers may be higher. And in India alone, we have more than 250 plus 5-star Alliance. So these are the ones who have been recognized as 5 stars. But there are many others which also have facilities of luxury of a bathtub and a shower. So those of you who have taken the shower in the last 2 days are biggest culprits of the water solution problem. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Aseem. I wish we had more time and we could discuss a bit more, but please feel free to meet all of our panelists during lunch. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for to this amazing panel, and a huge round of applause for them, please.